incidents because, surprise, surprise, Marcel, the people who have the underlying backbone to resist these things tend to be Christians and not people like Marcel who are just rootless cosmopolitans with no connection to anything. Very interesting book. A lot of it's pretty harrowing to hear what he basically thinks we're coming towards in this country when you read the stories of what people went through in communist countries. If you've ever read Solzhenitsyn's stories,
does he think we're getting Christians in gulags? Like,
he thinks we're getting a softer version of totalitarianism, and he defines that as, he would say, totalitarianism is when there is nothing that is outside of politics.
Okay, yes. Listen, here's what,
and we're getting a softer form of totalitarianism where you might not go to a physical gulag, but you might have your house taken away from you, or your social credit score is lowered.
Frozen. Yes.
And your bank account's frozen, and you're basically not allowed in society. And his basic point is, the thrust of his argument is that you must learn to get used to suffering and going without, because under a soft totalitarian regime, the thing that will be used to hang you is your fear of discomfort and your addiction to pleasure and comfort. Yeah. And they'll threaten to take away your bank account. They'll threaten to take away your fancy podcast microphone. And you have to be willing to let them take it. Not let them take it, but you have to be willing to not make that higher than your soul.
Yeah. Actually, this reminds me of, I've talked about how stupid the Boogaloo meme is. Now that the Boogaloo meme has entered like a quasi-mainstream, I now understand what the play is. All these fucking right-wingers are LARPing. It's like, oh yeah, once the government comes for my guns, I'm going to mow down any ATF agent that comes through my door.
Yeah.
That I now know for certain that the ATF, like a memorandum went out at around that time saying we're not going to even bother kicking down their door. We're just going to freeze our bank accounts.
Yeah.
Like, right-winger, I want to know, if you're Boogaloo posting or whatever, I want to know, when the government decides that you have guns that you're not giving up, and they hear your cute story about your boating accident or whatever, what are you going to do when your bank account is frozen? What are you going to do when you can't use PayPal anymore? Your debit card doesn't work. You can't make cash withdrawal. What will you do then? I'm not going to get the vaccine. Okay, now you can't shop at the market, right? Here, you want to talk about Jesus freak stuff? Let's talk about the tribulation. What are you going to do when you need the mark of the beast? What are you really going to do? What's your plan here?
Yeah.
You're going to start the Hawaiian shirt party over a declined card at Shop and Shop? Or are you just going to get the vaccine? I mean, I'll tell you, I'll probably just get the vaccine, right? I'm not here to pretend to be something I'm not. I'm here to drag you all down to my level.
I've thought about this myself, because when you talk about the vaccine, what happens, that's the question, is with these Boogaloo people, you're right, they're fighting the last war.
Not only this, because they didn't even fight it. They've always said, when the government does X, Y, or Z, we're going to roll out and we're going to start the Hawaiian shirt party, and the government does all this outlandish shit and they don't do anything. And then the meme gets traction, and then it's like, listen, the government's not even going to do that anymore. They've already done all those shitty things you thought they were going to do, and you didn't do anything, and now they have a new entire roster of shitty things they're going to do, and they're
waiting
behind.
for Lon Oriuchi to come attack them in a tank.
Yeah. Lon Oriuchi, yeah, he already did it. He already shot
that
man's kid. He already did it.
And this brings me to a point I've wanted to make on the show for a while. There's a saying in politics, it's more of an old thing, I don't think they say it anymore. Used to be, I think Reagan used to say this, that they say a recession is when your neighbor is unemployed, a depression is when you lose your job.
Yes.
And likewise, we seem to believe that as long as I am not personally in a gulag, this is not a totalitarian or society, this is a free society.
Oh, yes.
If my neighbor, right now, a tank pulled up and my neighbor got pulled out of their house and taken away. For most people, they would say, wow, that's horrible. That's a terrible thing. But this is a free country, And it's a free country right up until the minute that the tank takes you away.
Hey, you want to know another thing? I totally forgot about this. I wasn't in the list. Alex Jones, remember when he got purged from all channels a while back? Like maybe it was a few months ago, right? And now on Twitter and YouTube did another simultaneous purge of a bunch of conservative channels. And there's a lot of people who are very upset, but who back in the day, they said Alex Jones is beyond the pale, right? The conservative instinct to stab themselves in the back, to stab their friends in the back, is actually, at least when at least I'm the left's enemy. At least when they make my life hard, I know that they're my enemy. Republicans will backstab each other and not feel a fucking thing about it. And then it will happen to them, and they'll make the fucking surprise Pikachu face. They'll be like Kevin from Home Alone, like, right? I never thought that Twitter would come for me. Listen, dude, they came for Alex Jones, and I didn't speak out because I'm not Alex Jones. And then they came for Project Veritas, and I didn't speak out because I'm not Project Veritas. And then they came for the New York Post, and I didn't speak out because I'm the New York Post. Oh my God, how did that poem end? How did it end, guys? And there's nothing to tell these fucking parasites, right? Because that is what it's really, despite me identifying strongly as someone on the right, I understand when like foreigners, especially like non-whites who are from like Latin America or other middle income countries, who are like on the left, and then they'll say like, how could anybody be like these conservatives or these right wingers? They're just landowners and they're sellouts and they're parasites and da 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 da. Oh no, listen, I promise, the right wingers in this country are also depraved parasites too. I understand why lefties in other countries want to eat their landlord or whatever. I can fully visualize the kind of depraved degenerates that right-wingers are in Venezuela or Bolivia or Cuba or whatever. I totally get it. They're just like that here too. It's a hard knock life for us.
And to your point about, what will you do? The question isn't what will you do when a tank comes to your door. I think most people, even the most de-radicalized person, if they were put in Ruby Ridge, they probably would have shot back because they would have said, well, at this point, I'm fucked. There's no getting out of this one. That's not the question. We want that to be the question because we want, and I think this is why this Live Not by Lies book is very important at this time for people to read. Even people like Marcel, who don't believe in God and think that God is a spook and whatever. It's okay, though, because God forgives you.
Actually, God is white.
No comment. We want to believe that that's it. Is what will you do when the tanks come? What will you do when some guy, in a uniform puts a gun to your back and says, march into that train car? And we want to believe that we will, at that moment, will resist. And we probably won't. Because as you can read in this story and as you can read in the Gulag Archipelago, a lot of people thought that, but the truth is in that moment, when you get arrested, you should know, I'm in the Soviet Union. I've been arrested. I'm fucked. They're telling me I am an enemy of Stalin. I know that I didn't do anything to Stalin. So I should know that I'm not going to be able to straighten this out. They've chosen me. They've targeted me. I'm done. And that's what Alexander Solzhenitsyn tells people is you have to be ready to, at that moment, consider yourself dead. It's over. What can I do now? And maybe that means you fight back, or maybe that means you try to hold on to your soul, even if you lose your control of your body or whatever. But the truth is...
Or you abandon all dignity.
Or you abandon all dignity.
I
would hope that you don't do that.
Yeah, but there was... Well, no. So in Inglourious Bastards, remember that line from Hans Landa in the very beginning, right? When he's talking about how it's his job to hunt Jews, and he says the reason that a lot of Nazis have trouble finding Jews, but he's really good at finding them, is because he is able to think of what to do. What would he do if he had truly abandoned all dignity and realized that he was in a fight for his life? If he had really thought that, and then he's like, Germans, they walk into a house and they look in the cupboard, they look in the closets, because they think of all the places they would look. But Hans Landa has a unique understanding, like, no, we're trying to kill these people. look under the floorboards, right? Abandoning dignity is not that. Sometimes that is how you live.
And in that situation, which I don't think is coming, I don't think there will always be those situations in every country, and there have been. Those have happened in this country. They have came for people and told them, we just need to put you in this camp for a little while until we figure out what the hell is going on. And those people went into those camps. And there were other people who they came and they told them, we just need to enforce this search warrant, and I'm sure if you're not guilty, you have nothing to worry about. It'll all. And those people, in the case of Ruby Ridge, obviously everybody there pretty much, except Randy and a couple of his daughters, everybody died. We want to believe, like these Boogaloo people, they want to believe in that. There's a clip going around today of Judge Napolitano, where he says, when I die, I'll die.
Sound of government drums, something. So.
He says when he dies, he's going to die safely and warmly in his bed, surrounded by people who love him. But when you die, you might die in this dramatic, Braveheart-esque way. And I think we want to believe that's the case because we want to believe that the moral choices we have to make are going to be easy. That there'll be a situation where somebody says, kill this old woman or I'll shoot you. And you get to say, I'm not going to do it because I'm a hero. And I'll die and I'll take that bullet because I'm not going to kill this innocent old woman. That's not what happens. Probably what's more likely is that someone will tell you, just do this little thing. Just put on a mask. Just take this vaccine. Just do this. Just do that. Just do this next thing. And they'll just keep ramping up the steps. And it's not going to be a guy puts a gun to your head and says, take this vaccine or I'm going to blow your head off. Because then you might say, this is a very stark moral choice. The type of person who would put a gun to my head and demand I inject something into my body is not someone I should obey. Therefore, I won't obey. Or maybe you say, I'll obey because I want to live and I'll figure out the rest later. But that's a very good, stark choice. Those options are very clear. I don't think it would take – nobody would say, let me think about it. They would either say, fuck you, pull the trigger, or they would say, all right, I'll take the vaccine.
Yeah.
But a question like, if you don't post a status about the new topic of the day where we're all saying this slogan, if you don't do this little tiny thing, all you have to do is like the greengrocer that Václav Havel wrote about, which is written about Live Not by Lies, who puts the sign in his shop window that says workers of the world. He doesn't put that sign in the window because he believes in it. He puts that sign in the window because he knows he's supposed to and it's required of him. That's a very small thing to ask of someone. Just put the sign in your window. Now, that sign in your window helps hold up the whole regime that oppresses all these people because it's another person going along and playing the game. But is not putting that sign in your window worth going to a gulag over? That's not a very easy moral choice because you might convince that person, that sign in your window it's playing the game. And not playing the game, exposing the game as a lie, is the only way you're ever going to stop this. Is everyone else has to say this is a lie, I'm not doing it. But that's all very well and good. But if I take that sign down, me taking that sign down does not instantly end the regime, but it could instantly end my life. That's a very tough moral choice because you have to ask, how much do I really care about the truth? Am I willing to go to the gulag just because someone asked me to say something that I believe false and wrong and goes against my views, goes against my beliefs? Most people are not willing to do that. I would like to think, we all would like to think that we're willing to do it. And I think the truth is, when you look in the mirror, you're probably not. I'm probably not. I'd probably just put the sign in the window. Mm-hmm. And maybe I would take it down and I think I'm being real cheeky. And then they come around and they threaten you. And they say that sign's supposed to be in the window and they levy a fine. They don't threaten to put you in the jail. They levy a fine. And you say, oh, I'm such a badass. I'm not paying this fine. And then they take it out of your bank account. Do you go and become a hobo with a bindle on a stick and ride the rails, or do you put up the sign? That's a big ask. And I think it's important in life that we ask ourselves questions like this. Like, what would I do in that situation? How far would I be willing to push it to fight for what I believe in or to fight for my soul. And I don't think that most people want to